Jesus said, use your gifts. Good morning and welcome to 755 Live. About 5 minutes of what Jesus said. These are soundbite versions of the commands and teachings of Jesus to help us remember them and put them into action and live the abundant life that he promised. And today's Jesus said comes from the book of Matthew. So we're going to start there. Matthew 25, Jesus is giving a lot of parables about the kingdom. And he says, use your gifts, or that's the soundbite version of this parable that he teaches here. Have you ever seen a kid or a child who received a gift and they couldn't use it right away, and they get really, really frustrated? One thing that I learned as a parent is that batteries aren't always included. And sometimes that can be very, very frustrating. And in our own lives as well, much of our frustration comes from not using what God has already given us. And Jesus told this parable to teach us to use our gifts, use what has been given to us. He talks about a man going on a journey from Matthew 25:14. And he's talking about the kingdom of heaven. And he says, the kingdom of God, for it's like a man going on a journey who summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his ability. So 5 talents, 2, and another 1. Now this is a sum of money that we'll talk about in a moment. The one who had received 5 talents went off right away and put his money to work and gained 5 more. And going on in the story here, verse 17, in the same way, the one who had 2 gained 2 more. But the one who had received 1 talent went out and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money in it. And after a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled his accounts with them. Now, Jesus goes on to explain that the master was happy with the one who had 5, who had multiplied it, and he was happy with the one who had 2. But the one that was given 1, who buried it in the ground, the master was incredibly upset with. This is one of a series of kingdom stories that Jesus teaches in Matthew 25. Now, the context here doesn't mean a lot to us because a talent is not a form of money that we use, but it was a big chunk of change back in these days. It was equal to 6,000 denarii, which 1 denarius was the usual day's wage for a worker. So it's a lot of money. I did some quick math this morning. The average income in Parker County, if we multiplied that according to the amount that Jesus mentioned here, each talent would be about $600,000. So the one that was given 5 talents would have been given $3 million. The one who was given 2 talents, 1.2, and the 1 talent, over $600,000. And the important point here is that what they were given wasn't theirs. It was the master's. And keeping the master's money safe, keeping what they had been given safe, wasn't the point. Investing to multiply was what was commended. This goes back to actually the model of creation, kind after kind, be fruitful and multiply. Jesus talked about this, that we were chosen to bear fruit. He said, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. And the final command to his disciples, which we are, go make more disciples. I believe that Jesus was teaching them and giving the example here in this story that obedience multiplies. And when we invest our gifts, the things that God has given us, into the kingdom of God, the fruit should grow on other people's trees. But many times we look at the gifts that others have and compare what we have and think, well, we don't have the 5 talents. We don't have the large amounts that someone else does. But Jesus made it very, very simple. In fact, if you go on in Matthew 25, he talks about the least of these. And he says that when we do it for the least of these, we are actually doing it for him. Our gifts, our talents, our abilities, our resources aren't just so that we can hang on to them. Jesus said to use our gifts, and we should be using those gifts to help even the least of these. Jesus said, use your gifts. What has God placed in your life, in your hands? And how can that multiply in the kingdom? Use your gifts. That's what Jesus said. How can we put that into action today? Thank you for joining for this 5 minutes of what Jesus said. If this is meaningful to you, it really means a lot and is helpful. If you like this, if you share it, if you comment, appreciate all the support, and have an amazing day and use your gifts.